when completed, and now scheduled for about 2008, it will be the world's largest radio broadcast station. But it's not designed to broadcast for human ears. It uses a unique patented ability to focus radio frequency energy. And it's designed to put this radio frequency energy into a spot at the top of the atmosphere.
What is this project doing there?
Well, it's a type of device called an ionospheric heater, which because it heats the ionosphere. The ionosphere is the outermost layer of the atmosphere. It stops incoming solar radiation. So it's incredibly important to maintain life on this planet. Is you need the ionosphere or we'd all be fried. Now, what this thing does is it injects energy into the ionosphere, heating the ionosphere. This spot is going to be about 2.5 miles across by about 2.5 miles deep by about 12 miles across by 50 to 90 miles up, depending on how they're using the antenna field. HAARP is an antenna field. It's a field of antennas so arranged as to work as one big antenna. Now, this energy injected into the atmosphere will heat the ionosphere and cause it to rise and go out into space. It will change the shape of the ionosphere.
And what might be the point of that?
Well, there are a number of technologies. Basically, this injecting energy into the atmosphere to make it do things is called ionospheric enhancement. You gotta love that. You gotta love that. Only the military would think that breaking something makes it better.
Enhancement. Okay.
Yes.
Continue.
So the idea here is that one of the first things is if the ionosphere's shape is changed, you change the way it bounces radio waves. Long wave and short wave radio bounces off the ionosphere. If you've ever been traveling in your car and you pick up an AM radio station from the other side of the country, that's because it's bouncing off the ionosphere. Now, so what they can do is they can intentionally reshape the ionosphere. They can change the way it's bouncing. If they know which radio frequencies are bouncing where at what time, they can jam worldwide radio communications.
Well, this would appear to have military applications.
Yeah, exactly. If you're engaged in a war, one of the things you want to do is you want to cut the enemy's communication lines. And this would be a brilliant way to do that. The program was initially funded by the United States Senate to do something called Earth penetrating tomography. Now, this is a brand new science. It did not exist before 1980. What it is, it's like CAT scanning the Earth. It's also been described as a dirt radar. Now, what happens? One of the ways of doing this is that with HAARP, with this injection of energy into the top of the atmosphere, this literally blows the atoms, blows the molecules of the atmosphere apart, breaks them down, and when they break down, they give off a scream of extremely low frequency radiation. This is called ELF, extremely low frequency. These radio waves penetrate deep into the earth and deep into the sea. Now, with the HAARP was funded under counter-proliferation studies. The idea is that if you can get Earth penetrating tomography to work, you can look with this ELF extremely deep, maybe as much as 2 miles. So you can find and monitor enemy underground bases for the manufacture and launch of weapons of mass destruction. So that was the trust but verify aspect of Star Wars.
Trust but verify.
Yeah.
So you can burn a hole in the ionosphere, in essence, or in essence,
you
heat
can
it to a point.
you can heat it. This will create a plasma that will go out into space. This plasma will be a electrically charged plasma, so that anything coming in to it will be fried out. This is a Star Wars defense shield that anything coming in, like incoming ICBMs, would pass through this plasma and have its electronics shorted out. Also, you can the spy satellites travel right at the top of the atmosphere. So if you punch this up a little bit, it goes into the zone where the spy satellites are, and you can fry out the enemy's eyes.
What about atmospheric changes? What about global warming? Are these issues that play into this?
Those are questions that have been raised since the world first heard about HAARP. If you are changing, if you're creating if you're creating this flow out of space, if you're moving the atmosphere out, you're of course creating a lower pressure zone. You're creating a void that the lower air will fill into. So you may be able to generate winds. There's some issues about how much weather control it actually is capable of, because here we're talking about injecting the energy into the ionosphere, which is the top of the atmosphere, where the weather happens in the troposphere at the bottom of the atmosphere, and there's many miles distance between these two regions. But one of the applications in the original patent was the patent speculated that you could create artificial lenses in the atmosphere, and this is like, imagine, if you will, a magnifying glass, and on a sunny day, you can use a magnifying glass to start fires. So the idea is they may be able to create artificial magnifying glass lenses in the upper atmosphere that would direct more solar energy into the lower atmosphere and heat it up, which would then allow you to move it around. And if you can move the lower atmosphere around, then you can move the jet stream. And if you can move the jet stream, then you can dial up either floods or droughts at will.
This technology, I'm going to ask you this one question and we'll go back to that. Is this technology already developed sufficiently where that could be done, theoretically, at this time already?
I believe that's an unknown. What we have, the HAARP site is still under construction. They started the project around 1990. They started building the site, which is in southeastern Alaska, about 1993. It's currently not scheduled for completion until late 1997 or sometime in the summer of 98. Now, when
you mean 2008?
Yeah, 2000.
Right.
I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, we're a decade back.
Yeah, I'm it's hard to talk and think at the same time.
So it should be completed in 2007,
2008,
2008.
yeah, right in there. And so we don't really know what its output is capable of until they do it. That's the aspect of this thing. Is this thing is a scientific project to do something that's never been done before. And so whenever you're doing something that's never been done before, there are all kinds of unknowns.
This subject often falls under the subject of conspiracy theory, but in essence, there are patent trails that are indicating that all of these technologies are what are under construction, basically.
Right. These patent trails are very controversial, in that there was a company named APTI. Originally Arco Power Technologies Incorporated, and the Arco in the name kind of revealed too much, so they changed it to Advanced Power Technologies Incorporated. APTI got bought by E-Systems, one of the largest of the U.S. Defense contractors, and then E-Systems got bought by Raytheon, which is like the third or so largest, certainly within the top 10. And then recently, Raytheon has sold E-Systems to British Aerospace, or now BAE Systems. So BAE Systems currently has the contract to finish the project. The chain of custody on these things, the area of interest is that there are these patents that APTI created. Now these patents are for a field of antennas 40 miles on a side that would have a tremendous impact on the environment. HAARP project is, at the moment, it's 1,000 feet on one side by 1,200 feet on the other. And the HAARP people say, oh no, we have nothing whatsoever to do with those patents. It's not us. We're not doing that. Except that the people who own those patents get the contract, because it is a unique item. Yes, it is an ionospheric heater, and there are ionospheric heaters around the planet. There are 20 or 30 of them in operation, but only HAARP has the ability to focus the energy from the field into a spot in the atmosphere. And that uniqueness is in those patents.
Now, this project, if you listen to HAARP's public re- releases, for example, is a simple private sector project.
Absolutely.
But
And
I'm hearing military contractors at each
oh,
stage here
oh yeah,
involved.
yeah. Well, military contractors. Who has the contract right now? British Aerospace, North America. It's being built by their Electronic and Information Warfare Division. Um, the
Sounds
project
friendly.
the project management is from an office in DARPA. DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's if you've ever seen the James Bond films, you probably remember Q, the old guy who comes up with all these crazy gadgets. Well, imagine Q having 10,000 employees and a $4 billion contract, a $4 billion budget. That's DARPA. DARPA is the cutting edge of military technology. There are 8 directorates within DARPA. HAARP is being directed by the TTO, the Tactical Technical Office. Now, what their job is developing what are called force multipliers. Now, to give you an idea what a force multiplier is, imagine you're going to invade Grenada, and you've got a fleet of ships, but you don't want the Grenadians to know that you have these fleet of ships out there. So you create fogs and clouds to hide your ships in. Well, the fogs and clouds are force multipliers because your force can sneak in and is more forceful because of having this.
Ah,
So that's what.
force multiplier, yes.
Yes. So HARP is being built by guys whose job it is to make force multipliers, and this turns up constantly in the HARP literature. The mission head, the guy in charge of HARP at DARPA and the TTO is a Dr. Sheldon Meth, and he runs four projects. 2 are laser development projects. One's called Laser Star, and one is called Air Laser. Air Laser is an airborne laser weapon. Laser Star, I've never been able to figure out quite what it is. And his third project is I've read the literature on it repeatedly, and I cannot figure it out. But its code name, the name for the project is an acronym like HARP is AARP. Well, this is Mayhem.
Well,
Yeah, it's some sort of the M is munition. I figured that part out. So we got HARP, the civilian science project, is being developed by a guy who's working on 2 weapon laser projects and some sort of a munition named Mayhem.
there are also universities involved.
There-
MIT, UCLA, some very prestigious
Yeah.
universities in terms of technological development.
The who's involved in the project changes from year to year, but it's been running about 12 to 16 universities, some non-governmental organizations, NGOs, such as SRI, Stanford Research. So there are some big players in this thing. But again, you're right. It appears to be civilian. What they want, they insist that it is completely above board. There's nothing secret about it. It's just a little civilian research installation out in Alaska, and it's not a harm to anybody. It's not a weapon. Don't look behind the green curtain.
Don't worry about it. Don't look behind the green
Yeah.
curtain. Yet it has been repeatedly listed as one of the top underreported stories and subjects.
Well, obviously, the don't look behind the green curtain is working. It has not appeared. It's had very minimal reportage in the mainstream press.
Considering the nature of the agencies involved, the university involvement, etc., it certainly would seem underreported.
So what I was setting up here is that this appears to be Star Wars. This appears to be a ground-based Star Wars weapon system. Now, at the beginning of Star Wars, the Russians freaked out. I mean, they totally freaked out because what this would do is this would shift the balance of power. We'd always had MAD, mutual assured destruction. This would shift the balance of power to give us a first strike capability.
So we have the implication not only of our own university system in the military, but also the Russian science community
Right,
behind
right.
this civilian project.
The civilian project. Another application, another thing it's officially funded for, is communicating with deeply submerged submarines
Right.
by tuning the electrojet. Now, tuning the electrojet means you are actually working with a big Earth system. You're actually affecting the Earth's magnetic field. And again, you're doing it by creating these ELFs, extremely low frequencies. Now, the point you brought up, and the one that made the light bulb go on over my head when I heard about HAARP, was that these two technologies of Earth penetrating tomography and talking to deeply submerged submarines both involve bathing the Earth in ELF at exactly the same frequency that the human brain works at. And my first thought was, if it is exactly what it says it is, do they have any biological scientists on the program? No. There's nobody on the program who has any clue what this technology, what kind of technology how this technology will affect living things. They did an environmental impact study, and the environmental impact study said, "Oh, no problem, go for it." So they don't have anybody on board officially. And so I thought, well, in terms of unintended consequences, if you are beaming radio frequencies at known brain entrainment frequencies, if you
Explain the word entrainment.
right, the human brain is a radio transceiver. It emits a weak radio signal and has been shown to be affected by external radio signals. Now, if we're going to put a brain entrainment machine on the heads of everybody on the planet simultaneously and not know we're doing it, this could have some really unintended consequences. Governments have invested billions of dollars in finding ways to control the mind. One of the heads of the CIA, Cohen, told Congress, "I need more money to do mind control research because the Soviets are ahead of us." 5 years later, the next head of the CIA tells Congress, "We are doing wonderful. We're way ahead of the Soviets now." So maybe we caught up. But the Soviet research started in the late 1920s or early 1930s, and one of the early experiments they did was hypnotizing someone, giving them a command phrase that would then have them do something, and then trying to use radio to trigger them at a distance. And I thought, HAARP could be an amazing improvement over on that idea. HAARP does have potential to affect weather. It's a rather distant potential, but it's still there, and we are signatories to a treaty that prohibits using the weather as a military weapon. So that's another treaty that they really didn't want to get anybody upset about. So it was just easier to make it a civilian science project. And one of the things is that a lot of the universities they wanted in on the project had strict rules about not working on military projects. So another way they got around it, they could get some of these Ivy Leagues to join in on the project. No, it's not us. We're not doing that. But on the other hand, it clearly is a military project that is wearing a civilian dress.
Why are we not hearing anything about this project, be it civilian or military?
That's a really, really good question. And if you find out the answer, please tell me. I was talking to a TV producer last night. He had worked up a treatment, and he was pitching a pilot for a show. And he wanted to do a segment on HAARP, and another segment on did we have prior knowledge of Japanese attack in Pearl Harbor in December '41, and the answer he got back from the the network he was working with was they didn't want to do prior knowledge in Pearl Harbor because it's too much like 9/11, and they don't want to destabilize the public's opinion of the government, because they didn't want the public to get the idea that maybe the government had something to do with 9/11 if they'd had something to do with Pearl Harbor. And he said, okay, I can understand that. What about HAARP? No comment. What do you mean no comment? Sorry, no comment. We're not going to talk about that. So there's something going on out there. It's not just not being covered. It's not being covered.